Welcome to Good Journeys with Second Mountain, the show shining a spotlight on lessons learned from trails travelled. Coming up on this episode.
I feel like I had lost myself for the longest time. And that's really hard when I tell people this, my friends, look at the inner child inside of you. Is that inner child happy? Are you taking care of that inner child? Are you keeping promises to that inner child that you gave a long time ago? And one of the reasons I went to Spain was because I grew up there, and I went back to where I, was playing in the park, and I sat on the same bleachers, by the way, are still there. That park is still there. It's beautiful. So I sat on the bleachers and I'm seeing my ghost, everywhere, like playing, skipping rope and eating sunflower seeds and, just laughing and having fun. And I had the church was really right across the street from where I lived. And so I remember communion and coming out in my dress and just looking around, and I'm like, wow, I promised her so many things and I'm letting her down.
Hello and welcome to episode 22 of Good Journeys with Second Mountain, the show that takes a deep dive into trails travelled and lessons learned along the way. I'm your host and the founder of Second Mountain Comms, Ben Veal. I have a real passion for helping good people do good, and I hugely appreciate you joining me today for what I have no doubt will be a truly inspiring conversation with a very special guest who I will introduce in just a moment. But first, if you're new to the show, please do check out our archive of honest and powerful conversations by subscribing now to Good Journeys with Second Mountain wherever you get your podcasts. You can also watch all of our interviews over at our YouTube channel. Now, without further ado, joining me all the way from sunny California, it is the wonderful Lilian Garcia. Welcome to the show, Lilian. How are you?
Thank you. I'm doing great. Thank you so much for inviting me on.
You're very welcome. We had a few tech issues to overcome, but we got there, didn't we?
Got it. It's all about persevering. It's all about keep going, keep trying. Yes.
Absolutely, which will be a big theme, I'm sure, for today. Now, this is a real kind of, feels like a real kind of full circle moment for me because I had a memory 4 or 5 years ago. I remember I was out in my yard doing some painting of my decking, and I was listening to a podcast, and that podcast happened to be your Chasing Glory episode that you did with Dave Bautista. And
wow.
I just remember being blown away by how the two of you, the kind of conversation, that kind of raw vulnerability, him talking about his upbringing, him talking about his mother, him talking about all the things he'd encountered in his childhood. And it sowed a seed for me, just thinking, I wonder if I could do that one day. I wonder if I could, maybe that's a role that I could have in the future, do my own little podcast and have similar conversations. And here we are, 4 or 5 years later, and Lilian Garcia is on my show.
Oh my gosh. It is so humbling and special to know that somehow things that I have done have inspired others. And it brings me to when I was doing a seminar one time, and they were talking about what do you really want to do in this life? And I remember crying and crying. I just had all this bottled up inside of me. And my response was, I want to make impact. I want to make a difference. And so when you say things like that, you don't understand how fulfilling that is for me, and how that is, I just remember that girl crying so much, and then I just went out and did things, and then ended up inspiring people without even knowing. So it's beautiful. Thank you for letting me know.
No, absolutely. I think, there's something very intimate about a podcast, isn't there? And I think you can have a very different kind of conversation via this medium than anything else. And that's why I love them. And I think especially during lockdown, the first round of the pandemic, podcasts literally were the glue that kept me tethered to reality. Every day I was off for walks for hours, just immersing myself in wonderful, inspiring conversations. So to have the opportunity now to speak with people like you, who I've known from afar on a TV screen from the other side of the Atlantic for decades, but actually to have this conversation now is very special. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, Ben. I appreciate it. I love what you're doing. I love your mission, which is why I'm here.
So I always like to kick off with a brief introduction. So deep breath. Here goes. My guest today, Lilian Garcia, is a multi-talented international recording artist, broadcaster, and globally recognized television personality. As a beloved member of the WWE family for over 2 decades, Lilian was the first female and Latina to ever announce WrestleMania, holds the record for singing the most times at WrestleMania, and is also the first female in-cage announcer for Professional Fighters League. Passionate about giving back to her community through charity work and guided by her faith, Lilian was named as an official spokesperson for breast cancer organization, the Susan G. Komen Foundation in 2013, and has performed the national anthem at several of their events, including New York City's Race for the Cure. As you already have heard, Lilian's positivity and joy for life is infectious. So I'm really excited about diving into our chat today.
Oh, thank you so much for that intro. That's awesome.
The big intro. But so this show, as per the title, is all about good journeys and the lessons you've learned along the way. And you and I first connected and exchanged messages after you shared a really powerful story on another great podcast, Testimonies with Terry. And that was all about the roller coaster ride that you went on in 2021 and really tough times. Now we'll come to that in a minute. But what I'd love to do first is talk about where you are now, because as we're recording this towards the end of 2023, it seems from kind of following your online activity and social that you're in a really good, happy, joyous place. So what's changed for you over the last couple of years, Lilian?
I feel like I weathered the storm, at least that storm, because, life is full of storms, as you know. But yeah, I was in a big one. And I will say that if it not had been for a friend of mine who extended her hand out and said, "Hey, do you want to go to church with me?" And she introduced me to Mariners, which is a non-denominational church, because I always grew up Catholic. So I had never experienced a non-denominational church. I'd never experienced a church to this magnitude where it was actually in an arena and not into like a steeple church, you're what as a church. But all of a sudden there's like, I don't know, like 1,800 people that are in the service. And I'm like looking around and the band's rocking out. And I'm like, wait, am I at church or am I at a rock concert? I mean, it was unbelievable. And then the message was incredible. And what I loved was the message was the pastor was up there for like, I don't know, 30, anywhere between 30 and 35, 40 minutes, instead of usually the priest is up there 15, 20 minutes. And there was just something about the way that it was touching me that I was like, I've got to come back. And I came back, and then that's when I was like, oh, I got to see if they need singers. And then I ended up joining the worship team. And then I ended up diving into 2 programs. One's called Remedy and one's called Rooted. Rooted is like a 10-week course with women. And we study a little bit about the Bible and just the way of life, but through God's eyes. And that was very eye-opening. And then Remedy was basically remedying the trauma that I'd been through growing up and what had led up to 2021 and some of the things that I experienced. And I did that one for 8 months. And Ben, I got to tell you, I just came out of there like a phoenix. I came out somebody completely different. And the joy that you're actually seeing online is for real. And I have to, give the credit where credit is due. Giving my life and really surrendering it to God and to Jesus, like that has made the switch for me. And it's been so beautiful that I want to share it with people. And I'm trying to be careful, though, not to do it in such a way where it's cramming it down anybody's throats. I don't think that that's necessarily sometimes the way to go. And I'm not turning into a Bible thumper or anything like that. I'm just sharing my story of what's worked for me.
It's shining your light, isn't it?
It's a light that has been shined. And I knew when I was in Remedy, I knew I wanted to get rebaptized, I should say, because I was baptized as a baby, but I wanted to make the choice myself. And I knew along the way, as I was doing this course, that I wanted to do it, but something kept like holding me back. I graduated from the course and I kept thinking, now, nope, now, nope. And it was a beautiful thing. It was on Easter Day. that I decided like, I don't know, a few days before that I wanted to get baptized on that day. They were offering it that day. And then it wasn't until after I got baptized that I felt this tremendous joy. But it wasn't until afterward that my sister pointed out to me that it was actually falling on my grandmother's birthday. And I didn't put two and two together about the date. But the reason that's significant is because growing up, my grandmother lived with me for the first 14 years of my life until she passed when I was 14. And she was like a second mother to me. And she poured in so much love and kindness. And at times in times, I should say, where my mother was really struggling and really went through a deep depression. And if it had not been for my grandmother, I don't know where I would be or who I would be, to be honest with you, because she filled this void that I really needed. So the fact that I got baptized on her birthday, man, I sat there and sobbed on the phone with my sister when she brought that, because it meant even more.
Well, there is no accident in that, is there? That's divine intervention. That was meant to be, that was the date.
Totally, because I had just a few months before that gotten a tattoo of a butterfly on my back, and it's yellow and black, and it represents my grandmother. And so, she's always got my back. She's been telling me, like, spread your wings, like, let your light shine, let it shine. And so there's just this whole connection that's happening with, she is my guardian angel. I mean, when I did the album while I was at WWE, and I released it through WWE, and it was called Quiero Vivir. It was a Spanish album, but there's a song on there called Ángel, which is angel. And it's about my grandmother. So it's wild that all of these things are happening. I'm like, wow, she really is watching out for me. And now I feel my parents too. That was another big thing that I struggled, was losing my parents, and kind of close to one another. And then all of a sudden, losing my marriage. And like you said, we'll get into all these things, but I found myself like, wow, I'm just so alone. I don't have kids. And yeah, it got to be very heavy. But now I realize with Christ, I'm not alone. I'm just not.
Thank you so much for being with us for this inspiring conversation today on the Good Journeys with Second Mountain podcast. We'll return to our guest interview very soon, but I want to just take a few seconds now to thank our partners on the show, Resilient Leaders Elements, and tell you all about the positive change they're making in the world. We live in uncertain times where the only constant is change. Resilience has never mattered more, and it's much more than just a buzzword to the team at RLE. Leadership is about resilience, and RLE are focused on making world-class leadership development available to all, training people worldwide to build the skill sets needed to become resilient leaders. RLE's highly respected Resilient Leaders Development Program is a bespoke development tool that's perfect for leaders of all levels, and you can sign up right now. So if you want to turbocharge your leadership growth and become more resilient both in the workplace and in your personal life, there's never been a better time to start your journey. Visit resilientleaderselements.com now to find out more. We started speaking a few months ago. I lost my dad earlier this year, and
Sorry.
yeah, no, thank you. And I know obviously you've gone through that, and I wasn't prepared for that feeling of emptiness and disconnect that comes with your parents are always supposed to be there, aren't they? And
Right.
they're always at the end of the phone, and you just know they're there. And I still can't really. I think having conversations like this is helping me to process, but I'm a long way off processing. This is 3-4 months on, but it's a strange one, because I have, like you, I believe I'm right in saying that your mum had dementia. Is that right?
She was starting to develop dementia. And so she lived with me, like, after my dad passed. She ended up living with me for like a year, but she was really starting to decline. And it was the neurologist who said, she cannot stay living with you because she's going to decline a lot faster. And I was working, and my husband was working at the time. So it was really, really hard. And she was falling, and also she required extra help. And so I had to find a place for her, and she ended up doing much better in the place. They were doing exercises. She was with people that were her age, and then we're from mental exercises to physical exercises. She ended up getting a boyfriend, which was so awesome to see. She fell in love, and it was just so great to see that. And I don't think I've ever talked about this actually, but anybody who is a child with your parents, if another parent goes, be okay with that one parent finding love again. Like, just understand we're not supposed to be on this earth by ourselves. And God said it's not good for man to be alone, right? With Adam, and so he created Eve, right? Yeah. So it was just beautiful. I kept praying for mom to find that soulmate, and she did. And he had dementia too, but when they both saw each other, they just instantly remembered each other. And it was so beautiful to witness. She started just deteriorating more and more. I'm just grateful that she never forgot who I was. So my sister and I didn't have to deal with that. I don't know if you had to deal with that.
Thankfully not. So my father, he had Lewy body dementia, so quite an aggressive form of dementia, but he died very suddenly of an infection. Wow. Which I wasn't prepared for in hospital. But the saving grace to that, whilst I wasn't prepared for it and my family weren't prepared for it, is that a lot of his decline wasn't really witnessed. We were seeing it, and the thing is, he'd lost the things he loved, Lilian. So he'd lost, the ability. He couldn't read anymore. Really, couldn't concentrate on books. That was his great love. He couldn't paint. He was a beautiful painter and model maker. He couldn't do that anymore. Couldn't drive. He was forgetting who he was. Well, not forgetting who he was so much as forgetting kind of muddling circumstances and people. Yeah. And I mean, I think it's a very strange thing to kind of get your head around as a son, because obviously I want him to be around for as long as possible. But actually, I feel like there's real grace here, because actually I know he's in a better place now. I know he's at a place of pure peace and love, and all of his worldly challenges are gone. That doesn't take away the extreme pain of the loss of him not being right here with me now and sharing in these moments.
Of course. Yeah. I really tried to figure out this disease. And I will say, the ones that witness someone going through dementia, we suffer more than they actually suffer. When I think about my mother, she ended up being so present. It was actually a beautiful thing to witness, because she used to be so scared of money, not having enough money, and focused a lot on that. And I remember when she started losing her memory, she couldn't read anymore. She couldn't paint anymore, but she could be present in conversations and just being around people. Even if she couldn't carry the conversation, she loved to have us around. And so we'd put movies on, we'd put her favorite TV show on. And I witnessed someone who was living in the moment. And I was like, oh my gosh, wow, she's not even worried about money anymore. She's not speaking about tomorrow. So it was a beautiful thing to see that, and to realize she's not suffering like I'm suffering for her. So that was the only silver lining I could see in that disease.
And also, what about perspective there? It's like, that's a real lesson, isn't it, for our lives? Is in that I have these real moments when I was I was very, very blessed that I got to spend my father's last kind of 3 days on this earth by his bedside. And I wish I'd spent a lot more time with him in the previous 6 months, but I was very blessed to be here with him until the end. And I just remember staying up all night, kind of holding his hand, and it really put everything into perspective. All the little things that I've been worried about: money, work, family, goals. Yeah. It's like when you see someone you love literally leaving this earth, it does kind of render everything else somewhat irrelevant, doesn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. So that's why there was a silver lining in that, and that's what I focus on.
Yeah. Well, I just, take solace that every day it's going to get a little bit easier, and
it will. Give yourself the time to grieve. Seriously, just cry it out and all that. But then just know that you will start seeing that they will be with you in a different way. And so I don't miss them. Like, obviously I miss their presence. And there's some days that are better than others, but I feel such an energy with them and them guiding me that I'm like, oh no, they're still here. They're still here. They're just in a different way, which brings me a lot of peace.
Absolutely. So I wanted to kind of go back, rewind a couple of years then to 2021. So this, I heard you talking about this with Terry, and this really resonated with me because 2021 was also my worst year for different reasons. So here in the UK, we went through what was essentially the third lockdown, which was
wow.
the worst one by a country mile because it was just after Christmas where the children went back to school for one day, and then our government reversed it and said, actually, we're closing all the schools again indefinitely.
Oh my gosh.
And we then had 4 months where we weren't allowed to see people again. We were confined to our homes. We weren't even allowed to invite people into our gardens. And it was also coupled with probably one of the worst, most miserable winters we've ever had in the UK. It was hellacious. And that almost destroyed my marriage, as in we came within an inch of where we separated and we became within an inch of losing our marriage because the strain was just so high, and there was just no breathing room. It also just felt like there was no end in sight after. And so when I heard about your 2021, very different to mine, but I've spoken to a lot of people about that year, and I think there was something about that year that was a hard one for many people. What happened for you, Lilian?
Well, I don't want to go into detail as to what broke my marriage, but I will just say that it had nothing to do with the pandemic. It really didn't. So it was a while coming, but I just finally had to make a decision. I had to make a decision. And I did go away for 3 weeks to Spain by myself. And I thought it through very carefully. And I just had to make the best choice for me. And, it was really hard. And I remember I found the priest, this priest that I knew in Spain, and I talked to him about it. I kind of got confirmation that this is not what God wanted for me. Right. And so it was not an easy decision. It definitely wasn't an easy decision. So especially coming off the loss of my parents, moving 3 times, going through a pandemic, it was just one thing stacked on another, and financially and everything. It was like, oh my gosh, what in the world, something else. But I also saw it when I went away for 3 weeks. I realized this is your time to rebuild. How you're going to rebuild, I have no idea. But it was when I made the decision that a month later, my friend told me about Mariners. So I don't think there's a coincidence there. I knew I had to make a move, and I did. And then I was able to repair and build myself from that. And that's what happened. And I don't have any regrets at all. I am so much better now. The person, I feel like I had lost myself for the longest time. And that's really hard when I tell people this, my friends, look at the inner child inside of you. Is that inner child happy? Are you taking care of that inner child? Are you keeping promises to that inner child that you gave a long time ago? And one of the reasons I went to Spain was because I grew up there, and I went back to where I, was playing in the park, and I sat on the same bleachers, by the way, are still there. That park is still there. It's beautiful. So I sat on the bleachers, and I'm seeing my ghost, everywhere, like playing, skipping rope and eating sunflower seeds, and just laughing and having fun. And I had the church was really right across the street from where I lived. And so I remember communion and coming out in my dress, and I just looking around, and I'm like, wow, I promised her so many things, and I'm letting her down. And that's when I realized, no, I have to make a move, and I have to protect this little girl inside of me. And I'll never, like I said, I know I made the right decision. It was tough, but that is not the decision everyone needs to make. I think it's beautiful that you and your wife worked it back out again. I think it's great. I think that if you can, beautiful, then do it.
Well, as we record this, it's our 15th wedding anniversary tomorrow.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah,
That's
pretty
awesome.
Crazy. Yeah.
You got to celebrate it, man. Literally.
Yep.
Don't take that for granted.
No, we won't.
Celebrate it because
Very,
you've come
very
a long
grateful.
ways.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great.
I wanted to ask you about Mariners Church. So you've described kind of walking into this arena, and it's essentially it's a mega church, isn't it? Is what you're talking about there.
Yes.
But as someone who has, stood in the middle of a ring in a WrestleMania and looked out at a crowd of 90,000 people, probably not that much of a shock to you. But what's it been like to kind of shift your focus of singing towards, really kind of gearing all of your singing talent towards Jesus?
Oh, I feel so alive. I mean, I get sad. We do 5 services over the weekend.
Wow.
And it's a lot. It is.
Yeah.
It's 2 on Saturday. We do 3 rehearsals Saturday, or is it 2? 1, 2? I can't even remember. Wait, 2 rehearsals on Saturday, and then we do 2 services. And then Sunday morning, we'll do 1 sound check and then 3 services.
Wow.
So we would have done a lot in those, 2 days. And I'll tell you, it's been great for my voice. It's really gotten a whole lot stronger because of it. But I get sad at 12:30 on Sunday. You would think I would be like,
oh, yeah, no, I get that. Yeah.
No, I get sad because I've been in community for one, love my bandmates. They're incredible. The worship team, yeah, they're just unbelievable. And then being in community, the church, the people that I've made friends with, everybody who comes to church, like it's just this energetic vibe. Thousands of people that are coming to glorify God, and the love and the camaraderie that you feel. And then being able to sing these songs and the words of the songs. And now I'm not singing for me. And that's what the biggest difference is. I'm not trying to get ahead for me. I'm literally just using the gift of my voice that God gave me and using it to help inspire others, to help bring healing to others. It's all for the work that he wants me to do. And that's been the biggest shift. This is why I'm doing a Christian album. This is why, because it's really transcended now to, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life.
Yeah. It's really powerful. Do we have a date? How's that looking?
I've recorded some songs and I'm waiting to hear back on someone that's with a label to see about, trying to do it through the label. But if not, one way or another, I intend to release this, but it could be just a slower progression if it's just through myself. But I know that I'm supposed to do this. So whatever avenue I need to take, I'm going to take, but I don't know when. This isn't my timing. It's God's timing. I don't know when.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It looks like your church community is providing you with some incredible opportunities. I mean, I saw you've just been in Mexico, haven't you, for a weekend?
Yeah. So I did a missions trip, and I've been wanting to do a missions trip for Mexico, but every time the date that they had it, I was always on the worship team. So it worked out where I was off this weekend and I was like, okay, that's it. I'm doing it. And I got to tell you, it's only 2.5 hours from where I live. Crossing the border, the difference is crazy.
Really?
Like I've always flown into Mexico. I've gone to Cancun. I've gone to Cabo, Cozumel, but it's all resort areas, right? So, and with WWE, we did do Mexico City, and I did see some of the poverty that was through there. But when I went over the border here, I went, oh my gosh, this is crazy how different just over the line, how different the highways are. But here's the thing though, Ben, they have so much less, so much more joy. I saw these kids, we brought blocks over, and a lot of kids here don't even want to play with blocks anymore. It's not fancy enough. And there they were just building these blocks and so much laughter. And I was filming everything they were playing with potato heads. And not only were the kids full of joy in the simplest of games and ways, but the parents were all talking one with another. And there was really nothing. They made fresh tacos, which were amazing. But other than that, it was just people standing around. There was no alcohol, nothing like that. And just so much happiness and conversation and community that I came home and I'm like, wow, do we take so much for granted? It's a good trip to take for perspective. It really is.
Yeah, I mean, we've lost so much, haven't we? I mean, it's incredible that you and I are able to have a conversation like this now across the ocean and put this out on social media and connect in that way. But also, we are so connected and hooked to our devices. And I do worry that we are becoming increasingly disconnected as a world from, as you
Totally.
say, community and being present with one another.
There was nobody on their cell phones. Heck, none of the kids had phones. None of them. They don't. So there was nobody on the cell phones, and even the parents, they did not have cell phones. So everyone was totally present in the moment, having conversation with each other. And it was so beautiful to watch. And nobody wanted the day to end, including us who came. And there was about, I think it was about 17 or 20 of us that went over. And we were just like, this is the most beautiful day. And the kids came over and they were making balloons, the figures with balloons.
Yeah.
Two of the girls came over and gave me the hearts, and another girl came over and gave me a puppy that she'd made. And I mean, I was literally with tears in my eyes going, this is so beautiful. And the fact that I wasn't able to have kids, this is what I want to do. I want to be able to have moments like this with these children and be present and play with them. And obviously I made an impression because they were just coming over and hugging me. And I came there to provide joy for them, but they were providing joy for me.
What kids do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks once again for being with us for another inspiring conversation on the Good Journeys pod. At Second Mountain, we firmly believe that resilience lies at the heart of all good journeys, and our friends over at Resilient Leaders Elements are deeply passionate about making world-class leadership development available to all. RLE now has an exciting opportunity for those who share the belief that anyone can be a resilient leader. This is open to anyone who'd value an opportunity to collaborate with like-minded professionals from around the world. Their global Resilient Leaders Elements accreditation program gives you the chance to help others become more confident in who they are and what they do as a leader. The program is facilitated by an experienced Resilient Leaders consultant who will guide you through the journey step by step. You'll then be welcomed into a worldwide network of like-minded resilient leadership specialists. So if you're passionate about developing resilient leadership in yourself and others, why not consider training to become a Resilient Leaders consultant? Visit resilientleaderselements.com now and find out more. It's funny because, you're describing just kind of being present in that day, in that community. I mean, you presumably have seen most of the world through your time in WWE, yet I guess, given the schedule, did you really get much time to really enjoy the places you went to, or was it moving from one place to the next to the next?
So being the fact that I grew up in Europe, I love Europe and I love traveling. My mother and my father, they instilled the love of travel in me. So anytime we go to either Europe, the UK, Japan, Australia, Egypt, you always would find me out on the street walking around. And if it wasn't safe enough, for example, I remember Mexico City, they said, don't go out on your own and go walking around. I was like, okay, well, what can I do here? Because I am not going to miss out on seeing this. So I hired a cab to take me from the hotel. They had safe cab drivers from the hotel that you could hire. And I did, and I hired one, and I did the same thing. We were in Prague, and I always wanted to go to Prague. We only had 2 hours. Most people went, and the wrestlers, and they went and worked out, and that's fine. I mean, you do what you got to do for you. But for me, I wanted to take in the city, and I'm like, I only have 2 hours. It's fine. I'm going to go and I'm going to hire a cab. And I did. And he took me around for 2 hours, and I saw Prague somewhat. In Egypt, we all tried to go as a group in Egypt to see the pyramids. We had a bus and we pulled up, and there's the Sphinx. There are the pyramids. It was incredible. But all of a sudden, the kids started to notice who we were. We couldn't even get off the bus. They surrounded the bus, screaming and yelling and cheering and all. And what was funny, we were kind of our bus was one of those that are kind of high up. And I'll never forget, I looked to my right, and there's literally this camel that's staring right into the bus. And I was like, yep, we are not in America anymore. And so I'm looking at this camel, and I'm like, okay, this is wild. But we ended up having to leave. We couldn't get off. So
Yeah.
we had one more day there, and I was like, I did not come to Egypt to not see those pyramids. Like, it was always on my bucket list. So I went up to the front desk, and I was like, how can I see these pyramids? What can I do? Then well, you could hire a cab to take you and just take, go incognito, like sunglasses, hat, baseball hat. And I was like, done. And that's exactly what I did. Hat, put my hair up in a ponytail, and I got inside the pyramids, and it was magnificent. It was amazing. And I just did that everywhere I went. Australia, I jumped on a harbor cruise and went to the opera house. And I just took advantage every place I could. I took advantage. If it was 1 hour, 2 hours, whatever it was, I was going to go sightseeing.
And it must be so surreal because you're part of, as I say, this WWE universe. You're traveling all over the world, all crazy corners of the world. Yet it's all united by the same product, isn't it? Everyone knows you, and it's universal.
Yeah.
It's quite incredible, really.
I'll never forget when I got the audition and I told my agent, I was like, what could I be doing in the WWE? We didn't know that it was for ring announcer at the time. I had no idea. I didn't know that it was ring announcer till the day I showed up at work. So that's another whole story.
What did you think it was?
Something to do in the broadcast team, because my audition was always like interviewing someone, which I ended up doing on SmackDown.
Yeah.
But there was no mention of ring announcer until the day I showed up on Monday Night Raw. So I told my agent,
was that one of those situations where you're just literally just like, right, Lilian, out to the ring. Here you go.
Oh yeah. At 3:30 that afternoon, they told me I was going to be replacing the legend Howard Finkel, and here you go. And 20 minutes before we're going live on the air, they told me no cue cards. I almost ran, Ben. I almost ran. You almost did not get Lilian Garcia as your ring announcer for 15 years that night, based on that night, because I looked at the exit sign and I was full on panic mode. And I'm like hyperventilating. Mark's trying to calm me down. He's, the timekeeper. And I'm like, no, Mark, you don't understand. I don't know these people. I mean, I left. I grew up watching wrestling, but I grew up watching Ric Flair, Andre the Giant. I didn't know at the time because I'd gone to college and stopped watching. I didn't know who The Rock was. I didn't know who Stone Cold Steve Austin was. I didn't know who Triple H was. I didn't know any of these people. And so I'm like, I not only have to know who they are, and I couldn't identify them by face at the time either. Stone Cold came out. I had no idea, because you got to understand, if you don't watch the product, how do you know?
And that was probably, do you think that was a real blessing? But actually you weren't there in any way? Because if you had watched product, I guess there may have been an element that you're a bit starstruck, or that maybe you wouldn't have built up a natural
rapport. I wouldn't have been starstruck, but I would have been a little bit more prepared. Come on. I mean, I think they would have helped me, because at least I could have, if I didn't remember their towns, their weights, what type of match it was, the rules or whatever, I could at least say, making his way to the ring, Stone Cold Steve Austin. You know, the only thing that helped was the fact that I had a photographic memory. And so I would look at the cue card right before I'd go out there, and then I'd read it off my mind, but I sounded horrible. There was no cadence. Thank God there was no Twitter. There was no Facebook. I would have been raked through the coals. I mean, MySpace started coming out, and I started getting some hate on MySpace, but it wasn't bad. I have to give it to the WWE universe, who actually allowed me to grow and learn on the job, which was, look, Becky said it in the post the other day when she won the NXT title and she got Grand Slam. Congratulations, Becky. But she said, what is for you won't pass you. And I think that for some reason, God wanted me there as a ring announcer in this environment, because it didn't pass me, even though I wasn't prepared. They could have fired me. They could have said, sorry, it's not working, because I was on a trial basis. They were like, let's try you out for 2 to 3 months and you can try us out before we do a year's contract. And they easily could have said, not working out, but I was supposed to be there.
Yeah,
so
and you were real stability, weren't you? I mean, you essentially joined at the height of WWF, the Attitude Era, and then you were still, 2016. Incredible.
The hardest time to join. Yeah. I laugh because I'm like, oh my God, I came into the Attitude Era. Like, if somebody, I didn't know. When you asked me if it would have been better for me to know, no way. No way. No. Actually, I take it back. I would have, when you say, when I said yes before, no, I think I would have been, it wasn't starstruck as much as I would have been like, no, this is too big. These people are too important. These people are too, like, yeah. But the fact that I had no clue how big this was at that time, but oh my God. I remember, like, you'll see pictures of me like doing this. You'll see it on the side. And that's me whenever I get nervous. Right. I will do this with my finger. And I was so scared, and I was terrified, shaking in my boots, like, what am I doing here? Yeah. But
you've got all these kind of larger than life personalities, haven't you? I mean, you seem to have this kind of incredible rapport with a lot of them over the years, but the one that always struck me was your interviews that you did with The Rock. There was just something about the two of you, wasn't there? What were those moments like for you?
It was so much fun working with him. It's funny because when we got put together to do our first backstage interview, and it was kind of like, I think they picked up on like he could make me blush so easy. And it was just something that he and I had, this chemistry, the banter back and forth that worked. It just worked.
Yeah.
And you can't make that up, you know? And so the writers saw that it worked and they just kept writing for us. And I kept doing one backstage thing after another. And then next thing you knew, there'd be times that he'd bring me up when he was out there in the ring. And that wasn't even supposed to happen. None of that was written. Anytime he really called me out, I think he was doing this competition one time with the girls, and he says something to me that was not written. It was just this thing that just kept popping up, and it was great though, because he was also the reason that I got to sing on the show, because when he found out that I sang, and he loves to sing himself too, he told he told me to find the producers, let them know that, you know, see if you can sing the national anthem. We always play the instrumental. And from what I understand, that is still playing to this day. Whenever they do a live event, my national anthem is playing to the house. So that's kind of cool. I was like, wow, there's a piece of me that's still there with the WWE. So that's cool.
Yeah, because I had no idea until I was researching to have you on today. I had no idea that you did the national anthem for every single Raw for about 15 years.
Yeah. And SmackDown, sometimes it would depend. But yeah, I mean, and you said it in the introduction, right? That I sang it the most times at WrestleMania. I mean, tied for the longest time was Aretha Franklin and I.
Yeah.
Dude, that blew my mind. I was like, wait, I just surpassed Aretha Franklin?
The Queen of Soul. Yeah.
Things that I would never, like, if you would have written some of the stuff that I was able to do and history that I was able to make, it just blows my mind. But
this is what we come back to. It's not you, is it? It's not me. We're not. Yeah. We're not steering these ships. We are just where we are, getting the opportunities we're getting and making the most of them when they're there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I love, though, it was so nice of Samantha, who's there now as the announcer. She did an interview and she said that I inspired her to do what she's doing now. When she saw that I sang on top of announcing, and she's a singer too. And she said that, I think she was in 7th grade, saying, oh my gosh, I want to be the next Lilian Garcia. That blows my mind, blows my mind. And it's so awesome. I got to meet her. She's so sweet. She's doing such a great job. I'm so happy and proud of her. But it was just nice that she, you know, acknowledged. And that's what I think, like, I've loved acknowledging the fact of how much Howard Finkel helped me, Tony Chimmel helped me, you know, and people that have opened the door for me to do what I do. I don't think we don't get here on our own at all. We don't get here on our own.
Well, I don't know if you appreciate it or if it feels uncomfortable to hear this, but I mean, you are in that same category as Howard Finkel for the next generation of wrestling fans. You are, because you defined an era for wrestling. You were the voice of that period. And I think one of the things that's very magical about professional wrestling, and especially WrestleMania, is that these moments really live on. This isn't the same as kind of normal episodic television that you watch or even cinema. There's something very special about wrestling where you can just go back and watch something from the 80s or 90s and be transported immediately back to where you were at that stage of life. It doesn't really age. And you're in that time capsule.
That's crazy to think. And it's so awesome to have been put in that position. I'm so grateful for the opportunity that WWE gave me, especially giving a female, you know, at that time, giving a female an opportunity, like having Monday Night Raw, and then like announcing WrestleMania. And then now you see the doors opening for so many other females, even on the broadcast team, you know, seeing Renee when she was commentating. I mean, that's just, it's wonderful.
Oh, Renee's incredible.
Oh, she's awesome. I love her. She's awesome. But just everybody who has stepped up as females, that has stepped up in these positions that in a male dominated industry and have done so well. Kayla Braxton's another one that's doing so well. You know, I'm just so proud of these women.
Yeah, it's amazing to see. One thing I wanted to ask you about, and it's not an easy topic to talk about, but I saw you, this was already on my list of questions, and when I saw you sharing it recently on Instagram, was post 9/11. So you were the first person, I believe I'm right in saying, to sing the national anthem just a couple of days after the attacks on September 13th, 2001, when you kicked off a live SmackDown. That must have been incredibly difficult to get through. What are your memories of that day?
That was something. Let me just tell you. We all got awakened Tuesday with the news because we were in Texas time. And so it was 7 something in the morning. And my ex actually was the one that woke me up and told me, it's like, oh my God, he was all on the way to the towers for a meeting. So it was crazy that he was late getting there because of a coworker. Thank God for the coworker. I was already so upset on that day, as everyone else. And then I think it was Wednesday, we were hanging around. We couldn't fly anywhere. And then we knew we weren't doing the show, taping the show on Tuesday. And I don't think we found out until Wednesday that we were going to actually go live on Thursday. I think that's when the decision, by the way, there's an amazing documentary that WWE did on this that I don't know if a lot of people know. They can just Google 9/11 documentary WWE. Never Forget. And it's on YouTube and it's free to watch, but it really does recount everything that went into it. And I didn't even know a lot of stuff that went into it. And so you can see some of the stuff where I was feeling, but Vince came up to me, and I think it was Wednesday. He came to me and asked me, to do the national anthem. And I'm like, gulp. Oh, okay. Like I knew I had to do it. And I feel like there is a sense of not only pride that I feel, but obligation that I feel as an Army brat. My dad was a lieutenant colonel, and I saw, my dad went to Vietnam, all of that. I saw the way he really stepped up for this country. And I just felt an obligation to, as his daughter, to do that as well. And so for me, this was kind of course, this is not me going to war, but this was me representing our country and stepping up in a moment that, it's going to be scary. And yes, it felt like I had a little bit of the weight right here on my shoulders of, you got to nail this. And this is a thing that we all need to try to come together. And so there's a lot of pressure, but Rock and Paul Heyman were very helpful in this and giving me that nod of, you got this. And Paul Heyman's like, you're okay. Like they see me pacing back and forth, through the curtain. I didn't look through the curtain because I knew that it was going to be too overwhelming, but I could hear the crowd and they were hungry. They were hungry for something to unite. But Vince's speech before, that's what people don't talk about as much, is the speech that he gives before I went out there to sing was so epic. It was so powerful. I feel like it was the speech of a lifetime for him. And it really was the thing to pull us together and to realize we've got to do this. We have got to move forward. And so I was standing already at ringside when he was giving the speech, and he was firing me up. And I was like, okay, Lil, you just have to do this. And so I thank him, for that speech, for the magnitude, like just the that he gave, the heart, the passion, because it helped me. It really helped me. It put me in a frame of mind that I was like, all right, we've got to do this. Yeah. And so, it was nice that I could actually just let go. I remember Paul saying, get through it. And if you break down afterwards, break down afterwards. And that's exactly what happened. Like I just went, and just the tears but the unity. And that's what I talk about now, is the unity that was in that building and around America. If we could just get back to that and realize that we are so much more powerful together. And this is exactly what the enemy wants for us. Exactly this. They want us to be fighting one with one another, not being okay that we have differences. I said this recently in a post that I did some weeks ago. I said, imagine us eating the same meal, like let's say pizza. Now, we all love pizza. Don't get it wrong. Most of us do. But imagine having that every day for every single meal, every week, every month.
I think you've just described my son's dream, I think there.
Okay. I think even he would get tired of it. And what my point is that variety is the spice of life. And it is cool to have different points of view and be more open-minded. Just be more open-minded that your way is not always the right way. And you can have an opinion of what you think might be the right way, but also be respectful that somebody else might just have a different opinion, and I think the more that we have that and just can have conversations, the more unity that we have. And that's how America wins, not by tearing each other apart, because that's exactly what the enemy wants.
One thing I wanted to ask you about, just to kind of round off your WWE days, but also circle back to the faith conversation, is I believe was it Molly Holly that kind of helped you to reconnect with your faith life? How did that kind of conversation come about?
Yeah, this is when I was in Boston, and this was early on in my career, and I was having some hard times, and remember seeing a therapist, and she said, "Hey, you know what? Therapy's great and everything, but don't forget that God is there for you too." And at that point, I'm like, "Huh, okay, all right, but how?" And I didn't quite know how to bring God into the mix. It's like I always believed, but I felt for part of my journey, I felt like he was too busy for me. Now I realize, nope, he was there all the time. I just had to get through some traumas and get through some things. And I had to be present, which is what my life is now, right? I am more present. By me being more present, he's more present. So it's that I just thank Molly for planting that seed. And then when I had Sting on my show, Chasing Glory, and
Sting.
That Sting. When I had him on my show, and he talked about how he was at the height of his career, and yet he was the most lost he had ever been, and that he turned his life to Christ, and that everything changed for him. Again, that planted another seed, so that by the time I went into Mariners and experienced what I experienced, the seeds had been planted. And then I was like, okay, I'm ready to water the seeds now. I'm ready to have this grow within me. And that's exactly what's happened. And now this beautiful flower is just like coming out of me. And this is all his work, and I'm just a vehicle, but I love the fact that he's using me to do what I'm doing now.
Yeah. So how's your life changed once you went all in on your faith journey?
Well, I definitely appreciate the smaller things now more. I have more joy in my life. Now, don't get me wrong. There are days that there's a little roughness that happens. And what's so great is that I have community now. Like yesterday, I was having a little bit of a rough day, and I reached out to my girlfriend. She and I talked it through, and she's very faith-based too. And after I got off the call, I was like, okay, I'm good. And today I woke up super happy, and I'm like, wow, it doesn't mean that you're not going to have rough patches. It doesn't, but it means that you're going to be better equipped to get through them. And they're going to last a whole lot shorter than if you don't have anything, like something that's higher than yourself. Right. And so that, for me, Christ has brought community in my life. It's not just him. It's the people that I'm surrounded because of him. I don't feel alone, even though I'm single. I'm single. I don't have kids. I don't have my family is actually shrinking, and I should be the most depressed that I've ever been. And yet I feel the most joyful that I've ever been. I know he's doing some magic in me, and it's been incredible. The Holy Spirit lives in me every day. And Ben, this smile is real. That's all I can say.
Tell.
Yeah, the smile is real. It's awesome.
No, it's wonderful. And just keep putting that out there. I think, you're doing fantastic work on, across all of your channels. When you've been in something like WWE, obviously you have this huge high profile, don't you, in terms of name awareness. And I think when you can use that to actually talk about the things that you're deeply passionate about and your real life and your faith, as you say, with, as that kernel with the conversation with Sting, there's real power in that, in using your name. I saw it made me laugh. I saw a thing on your Instagram where someone had posted, someone at Mariners Church had gone, I've just realized that Lilian Garcia from WWE is singing.
Oh yeah.
And you've responded, come and say hi, I don't bite. But it's, it's that power of using, quote unquote celebrity, where, through the profile and the giant machine that you've been a part of, you are known to millions around the world. Even though that must be very strange, Lilian Garcia is known to millions worldwide. There's great power in the fact that you can actually share Jesus with an audience that may not be exposed to him otherwise.
This is what makes me feel like that's why I was in WWE, because a lot of times I go, how did I end up there? I was a singer. I wasn't looking to be a ring announcer, right? Like it wasn't something that I had ever dreamed of aspiring to be. And so the fact that I was placed there, I feel like now it's like a way that I can introduce Christ to people, and hopefully they will take it, and just experiment it for themselves. Maybe I can be that seed like Molly and Sting were for me. I can be that seed for someone else. And that gives me so much joy in thinking that, look, we're going full circle the way that I started this, when I was crying in that seminar and I said, I just want to make impact. I want to make impact in bringing Christ to others because of what it's done for me. I mean, just like if I had a really great movie that I, watched, and I would tell people about this fantastic movie, why wouldn't I also tell people about this fantastic transformation that I have seen happen to not just me, but to so many. And it continues to happen every day.
I love it. Thank you so much for your honesty, openness, positivity, and just all-round brilliance, Lilian. It's been wonderful to have you on the show today.
Thank you, Ben. Really appreciate what you do. You continue to keep up this amazing work.
Thank you. Where can people find you online? What are your socials?
Yes. So on Instagram and Twitter, or I guess it's X now.
It is.
It's at Lilian Garcia. And then Facebook, it's Lilian Garcia official fan page. And then, of course, at Lilian or liliangarcia.com for website. And yeah, I've got some announcements that I'm going to be making here shortly. So look out for that.
Watch for space. Well, I really encourage everyone to follow Lilian. Her content's wonderful, and she's just such a force for good in the world. So thank you for being with me today. And while I'm on the subject of thanks, thank you to my brilliant producer, Lorette's Visuals, for pulling the show together in fine fashion, as he always does. And this show really does rely on you guys to keep it moving forward. There's so many podcasts out there. So please do join in the conversation on social media using our hashtag GoodJourneysPod, and subscribe to our channels, because it makes a big difference and allows us to share inspiring conversations with the world.
So by the way, I don't mean to have the last word, but I do have to say this. The crowd and the fan base in the UK, I love you guys. Seriously, incredible fan base. Anytime I went to the UK, received with such open arms and such love, and even autograph signings, all of that. I hope to go out there more often. And I just want to say thank you.
Well, thank you. I'm not here for clickbaits and headlines. All I will say is there's rumours of WrestleMania coming to London, and I think we all know who needs to sing our national anthem if that ever happens.
That would be wonderful.
Give it a try. So that's it for today. I've been Ben Veal. My very special guest has been the brilliant Lilian Garcia. This has been Good Journeys with Second Mountain. So until next time, let's keep climbing together, and I'll see you all again soon. Bye.
Bye.